Madeline Okon stepped out of the gleaming glass doors of Khalifa Legal Trust, her law firm in Ikoyi, shoulders tense after a long day. The Lagos sun was sinking, painting the evening sky in rich hues of amber and violet. She retrieved her car keys from her designer tote and walked briskly to her Lexus SUV. She could barely contain her excitement. Tonight, her fiancé Richard had promised a surprise dinner at the penthouse. "Come home early," he had texted that morning. "I want to celebrate us." 6 years of dating, 3 years engaged. Madeline had invested her heart and soul in the relationship. Tonight, she was certain he would finally set a date for their wedding. As she parked in the basement of their luxury apartment in Banana Island, her heart fluttered. She adjusted her silk blouse, reapplied her lip gloss, and headed upstairs. The moment she opened the door, her world shattered. Candlelight, rose petals, a trail leading to the bedroom. Her breath caught until she heard voices. Soft moans. Laughter. Richard's voice. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached the bedroom. The door stood ajar, and there, tangled in satin sheets, was her fiancé, in bed with none other than Grace, her elegant but conniving stepsister. For a moment, time stood still. Her chest tightened. Her knees threatened to give way. Yet she stood rooted, unable to look away. Richard glanced up, startled. "Maddie, it's not what—" But she was already moving, tears burning in her eyes as she fled the apartment. Outside, the humid night air wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud. She stumbled to the street and waved down a passing taxi. The driver lowered the window. "Madam, where to?" Her voice trembled. "Just drive." The car sped through the bright streets of Victoria Island, neon lights flashing by in a blur. Her mind spun the betrayal, the humiliation. Grace. How long had this been going on? The taxi eventually stopped near Echo Atlantic in front of an exclusive 5-star hotel. Madeline stepped out, disoriented. The grand lobby sparkled with opulence, marble floors, towering columns, crystal chandeliers. She walked in slowly, her heart still pounding. A waiter approached, noticing her pale complexion. "Madam, may I get you something?" "Water, please," she whispered. But before the glass touched her lips, dizziness washed over her. Unbeknownst to her, Grace had earlier laced her champagne with a sedative. Her legs buckled. At that very moment, Maverick Khalifa, Lagos's most feared and admired billionaire, entered the hotel, trailed by his security detail. Known for his brilliance and icy demeanor, Maverick rarely concerned himself with strangers. Yet something about the beautiful woman collapsing before him caught his attention. Without hesitation, he signaled his head of security. "Take her upstairs. Discreetly. I'll handle the rest." The penthouse suite of the Elysian Grand Hotel was draped in understated luxury, floor-to-ceiling glass, plush furnishings, and a panoramic view of Lagos shimmering below. Madeline stirred on the velvet chaise lounge, the faint scent of jasmine in the air. Her head pounded, her limbs heavy. Where am I? Across the room, Maverick Khalifa stood by the window, an untouched glass of whiskey in hand. Dressed in an impeccable black tailored suit, he looked every bit the cold, commanding tycoon that the Lagos elite both revered and feared. He had sent his team away. Now only silence remained, save for the soft ticking of the suite's antique clock. When Madeline slowly sat up, her vision swam. The last thing she remembered was walking into the hotel, and then nothing. "Easy," Maverick said, his deep voice calm but firm. "You fainted in the lobby. You're safe now." She blinked, trying to focus. "Who are you?" "Maverick Khalifa," he replied evenly, "owner of this hotel and more." Her breath hitched. Of course she knew the name everyone in Lagos did. Maverick Khalifa was more than a billionaire. He was an empire in human form, ruthless in business, elusive in his personal life, and now, inexplicably here, with her. Shame burned through her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I must go." She tried to stand, but her legs betrayed her, still weak. Maverick reached her in a single stride and steadied her with surprising gentleness. "You need rest. You were drugged. he said quietly. My staff found traces in your system. Who did this? Pain flickered in her eyes, but she looked away. I can't talk about it. He studied her face, intelligent, proud, yet wounded. He had seen countless women try to lure his attention, but this one, there was no pretense, no act, just raw honesty. For reasons he could not explain, Maverick didn't press her. I'll have my driver take you home in the morning, he said. But the night had other plans. A sudden thunderstorm erupted over Lagos, torrential rain battering the glass. Roads would be flooded within the hour. You're not leaving tonight, Maverick stated. The roads will be impossible. I can't stay here, Madeline whispered. Her emotions churned grief, exhaustion, the sting of betrayal. I'm not asking, he replied, voice like steel. You'll stay here, in the guest room. No one will disturb you. She opened her mouth to protest but stopped. Everything, her body, her heart felt too fragile. Numbly, she allowed him to lead her to the guest suite, a serene space with muted tones and crisp linen. Maverick watched her silently for a moment before saying, rest. And for the first time that night, her body surrendered to exhaustion. When dawn broke over Lagos, a soft golden light filled the penthouse suite of the Elysian Grand Hotel. Madeline stirred beneath crisp linen sheets, her head clearer now. The events of the night before came rushing back: the betrayal, Grace, Richard, collapsing in the hotel lobby, and then him, Maverick Khalifa. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding. How could she have been so vulnerable? A stranger, a billionaire no less, had carried her to safety, given her shelter. Her mind wrestled with gratitude and embarrassment. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. A discreet female staff member entered, wheeling in a silver breakfast cart. Compliments of Mr. Khalifa, madam. He requests that you eat before leaving. Madeline forced a polite smile. Thank you. After a quick shower, she dressed in her previous day's clothing, immaculate but now wrinkled. Still, her natural elegance couldn't be dimmed. She stepped into the private lounge where Maverick awaited, seated by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a tablet in hand. He looked up, his gaze as unreadable as ever. You should eat something, he said simply, gesturing to the table set with fresh fruit, pastries, and coffee. She hesitated, then sat. Thank you for everything. I truly didn't mean to. No explanation needed, he interrupted, tone clipped but not unkind. My only concern was your safety. She met his gaze, her pride stirring. I'm not in the habit of being rescued. A faint flicker of amusement touched his eyes. Nor am I in the habit of rescuing. The moment stretched, charged, yet unspoken. Madeline gathered herself. I'll leave now. I have work to attend to. Where's your car? He asked. In Banana Island, but I took a taxi last night. Without another word, Maverick rose and reached for his phone. Moments later, his driver was waiting downstairs in a sleek black Range Rover. As they reached the elevator, Maverick paused. If you need anything, for whatever reason, contact my office. She tilted her chin. I'll manage, but thank you. Their eyes locked once more before she stepped into the lift. As the doors closed, Maverick stood motionless, hands in his pockets. Interesting woman, he thought. Different. No tears, no schemes, no desperation. Just quiet strength beneath the heartbreak. And though he didn't understand why, a part of him knew this would not be the last time their paths would cross. 2 months later, Madeline Okon's life was back in motion, at least on the surface. Her law firm in Ikoyi remained a symbol of her sharp intellect and work ethic. Her clients saw her as poised, brilliant, and unshakable. But beneath her polished exterior, the wounds of betrayal still throbbed quietly. She had ended all ties with Richard. Grace, unrepentant, had flaunted the affair across social circles. The gossip mill churned, but Madeline refused to feed it. Dignity, that was her shield. Until one morning, her entire world tilted once again. She sat in her private office, reviewing contracts when nausea struck, sudden and overwhelming. Pale, she excused herself and hurried to the executive restroom. Minutes passed as the wave subsided. Strange, she thought. This has been happening too often. A seed of suspicion took root. That evening, on her way home, she stopped by a discreet, upscale pharmacy in Victoria Island. No assistance, no questions. She purchased a pregnancy test and returned to her penthouse. Alone in her marble bathroom, hands trembling slightly, she waited. When the result appeared, her breath caught. Positive. A flood of emotions surged: disbelief, shock, fear, and something deeper. Her mind flashed back to that night. She had left Richard's betrayal in tears. The hotel. Maverick Khalifa. She pressed a hand to her stomach. Could it be? Could that night have led to this? 1 week later, after much contemplation, Madeline arranged a private appointment with the best OB/GYN in Lagos. A soft-spoken doctor confirmed it. Without doubt, she was expecting twins. "You are in excellent health," the doctor said warmly. 2 strong heartbeats. Tears welled in Madeline's eyes, a mixture of joy and dread. Twins. Her life was about to change forever. But one truth remained: she would face this alone. And she would tell no one. 6 months had passed since that night, the night that altered the very course of her life. Madeline Okon stood at the window of her Banana Island penthouse, overlooking the glittering skyline of Lagos. The city below buzzed with its usual energy, the hum of ambition, wealth, and secrets. Yet for her, everything had shifted. Her hand instinctively moved to her rounded stomach, caressing the gentle curve that now carried 2 precious lives. Twins. A quiet smile touched her lips, though her eyes shimmered with something deeper: love, uncertainty, and resolve. The months had not been easy. Morning sickness in the first trimester, followed by endless speculation from clients, society circles, and even so-called friends. A rising legal star, unmarried and now visibly pregnant, Lagos gossipers had feasted on it. Who is the father? They whispered in salons, boardrooms, and charity luncheons. Was it Richard? Or someone new? Perhaps an affair? Maybe the child of a client? Madeline ignored it all with practiced elegance. She held her chin high, her steps graceful, her work impeccable. She refused to grant the city any explanation. Her private life remained hers alone. At Khalifa Legal Trust, her growing belly did not diminish her commanding presence. If anything, it added to her aura, a woman unbowed by circumstance. She argued complex cases in court with calm precision. Corporate clients sought her counsel more than ever. Younger associates admired her strength, though none dared ask questions. But behind closed doors, in the sanctuary of her penthouse, the questions echoed louder. Should I tell him? Does he deserve to know? Would he care? Would he claim them? Or worse, take them from me? Her mind circled endlessly back to Maverick Khalifa, the cold billionaire who had rescued her that night, the man whose name commanded respect across Africa, a man she barely knew yet, whose children now grew within her. She had not seen him since that night. There had been no calls, no chance meetings. Lagos high society was vast, yet their worlds had not crossed again. Still, his image lingered, the deep voice, the piercing gaze, the unexpected gentleness beneath the ruthless exterior. But one thing remained clear: she would raise these twins on her own. No one, not even Maverick, would control their fate. Her days became a rhythm of quiet determination. She attended every prenatal appointment at Echo Elite Women's Hospital, accompanied only by her trusted driver, Michael. The best obstetrician in Lagos, Dr. Ifoma Balewa, had been discreet and kind. "They are strong, Madeline," Dr. Balewa said at her latest scan, the screen showing 2 tiny heartbeats pulsing in unison. "A boy and a girl." Madeline exhaled softly, her eyes glistening. Diamond and Jason. She had chosen their names in secret. At home, she converted her guest suite into a dream nursery, a space of soft whites, muted golds, and hand-carved furnishings from Ghana. No magazine spread, no social media announcement, just a mother preparing to welcome her children with love. At night, she often sat alone on her balcony, gazing at the stars. Her hand would rest on her belly as she whispered promises to them. "You will be loved," she murmured, You will be safe. You will never beg for anyone's approval. Yet no matter how many times she tried to banish him from her thoughts, Maverick's shadow remained. Across Lagos, Maverick Khalifa's empire was soaring. Khalifa Group Holdings had just completed two landmark acquisitions, an energy conglomerate and a luxury real estate firm. His name dominated the headlines. Maverick Khalifa reshapes Africa's financial landscape. His rivals envied him. His board feared him. Investors trusted him. And yet, beneath the steel exterior, something restless stirred. Late nights in his Banana Island mansion, after the meetings and the deals, he often found himself distracted thinking of a poised, intelligent woman who had crossed his path once and then vanished. Why should he care? He barely knew her. Yet the memory of her, the look in her eyes, the pride, the unspoken pain, would not leave him. Perhaps it was because, for once, a woman had asked nothing of him. No seduction, no hidden agenda. She had simply walked away. One humid afternoon, Maverick attended a prestigious charity gala in Victoria Island, a rare public appearance. Dressed in a sharp, midnight blue tuxedo, he moved through the elite crowd with polite indifference. The event was a blur of faces, politicians, billionaires, celebrities. None intrigued him. Until midway through the event, his head of security, Chuka, approached quietly and handed him a sleek tablet. "Sir, something you may wish to see." Maverick glanced at the screen. Lagos socialite top attorney, Madeline Okon expecting twins. Sources say the prominent attorney remains tight-lipped about the father of her unborn children. Photos exclusive to Lagos Lux magazine. The image showed her emerging from her firm's gala resplendent in an emerald silk gown, her belly beautifully rounded, her posture proud. She was more radiant than ever. For the first time in years, Maverick's pulse quickened. His grip on the tablet tightened, though no emotion touched his face. "Quietly," he murmured. "Find out everything." Maverick Khalifa sat alone in his private office atop the gleaming Khalifa Group tower in Ikoyi. Night had fallen over Lagos, but he remained at his desk, the city lights a glittering reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. The gala photo of Madeline Okon still rested on the screen before him. Twins. A flicker of something unnameable stirred in his chest. His mind, usually sharp and clear, felt clouded with questions. Was it possible? His memory sharpened. That night, 6 months ago, her vulnerability, her dignity, her refusal to play the usual games of society, the unspoken energy between them, and the undeniable fact that no other man had been near her, the whispers confirmed as much. If those children were his, he needed to know. But this would require discretion. Maverick Khalifa valued control above all things. A public scandal, or worse, a legal trap, was unacceptable. He reached for the phone. "Chuka, in my office." Moments later, his head of security entered, a towering man, loyal and unflinching. "You have your instructions," Maverick said without preamble. "No press, no gossip. I want a full background report, medical, personal, financial, quietly." "Yes, sir." "And Chuka," Maverick's voice hardened, "if anyone so much as whispers my interest, handle it." The man nodded. "Understood." For the next 2 weeks, Maverick waited. By day, he continued building his empire: boardroom takeovers, international negotiations. By night, beneath the polished surface, his mind churned. Why did it matter so much? He had never desired children, never trusted anyone enough to share his life. But something about Madeline, her strength, her solitude, drew him in. Was it guilt, a sense of responsibility, or something deeper? The discreet report arrived late one evening. Chuka laid the sleek, black folder on Maverick's desk. "Everything you requested." Maverick opened it, scanning the pages with intense focus. No known romantic relationships post-Richard. No financial dependency on any man. Medical reports confirm a healthy twin pregnancy conception window aligns with the night in question. No mention of the father to any party, not even close friends. And finally, photos. Madeline attending prenatal appointments. Madeline shopping for baby items alone. Madeline, proud and unbending, refusing the city's curiosity. Maverick closed the file, his jaw tight. There was no doubt in his mind now. They were his. Yet what to do? This was unfamiliar territory. He who negotiated billion-dollar mergers with ease suddenly found himself hesitant. She does not need me, he thought. She has not asked. But beneath that thought came another, sharper one. They are mine. At that very moment, across town, Madeline lay in bed, unable to sleep. Her fingers traced gentle circles over her belly, feeling the fluttering kicks of her twins. Diamond and Jason already so alive in her heart. And yet, the loneliness weighed on her. Her mother had passed years ago, her father distant. Grace forever estranged. I will do this alone, she reminded herself. I have to. But as sleep finally claimed her, one image lingered in her mind, dark eyes, cold and intense, yet protective. Maverick Khalifa. It was a rare cool morning in Lagos when Madeline finally stepped out for a much-needed errand. At nearly 8 months pregnant, her once swift stride had slowed to graceful patience. The twins, as active as ever, shifted gently within her. She wore a flowing navy silk dress, paired with elegant low heels, always polished, even now. Her driver pulled up to the private entrance of Maison du Bébé, an exclusive maternity boutique in Victoria Island. Inside, the staff greeted her warmly. Madame Okon, welcome back. She smiled softly. The boutique had become one of the few places in Lagos where she could shop without prying eyes. For the next hour, she perused tiny hand-stitched onesies and luxury bassinets, her mind briefly free from the weight of her hidden truth. Until the bell above the door chimed. She turned and her breath caught. Maverick Khalifa. Tall, impeccably dressed in a dark gray suit, he entered the boutique with deliberate calm. His gaze swept the room and landed squarely on her. For a moment, the world seemed to shrink. The polite murmur of the staff faded. Time hung suspended between them. Madeline straightened, her heart pounding. She had prepared for this moment countless times in her mind, and yet faced with him now, every rehearsed word evaporated. Maverick approached, his expression unreadable. Madeline, he said simply, voice low and controlled. She met his gaze, chin lifted. Mr. Khalifa. His eyes flicked down, taking in her rounded belly. No surprise crossed his face, only certainty. How have you been? He asked, tone deceptively casual. Well, she replied evenly. And you? Busy, he said, then after a pause. But clearly, not as occupied as you. A flicker of dry humor, yet beneath it a sharpened tension. Madeline's fingers curled lightly around her shopping bag. Was this coincidence? No, he replied without hesitation. I came to find you. Her pulse quickened, though she masked it well. Why? You already know why, he said softly. They're mine. A silence settled between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, she answered, voice steady. You were never meant to know. This is my responsibility. I expect nothing from you. Maverick's jaw tightened, eyes darkening. They are my children. That is not your choice to make alone. She drew a careful breath. I am not here to start a war with you. I've built a life for them, for us, and that life does not include complications. His gaze burned into hers. What you see as a complication is my right. Another pause. The air between them sizzled with tension, pride against pride, steel against steel. At length, Maverick spoke again, softer, but no less certain. I want to be involved. Madeline hesitated, heart aching, mind racing. Could she trust him? Could she risk entangling her children's lives with his cold world of power and ruthless ambition? Before she could answer, a gentle kick fluttered against her ribs, a small reminder of the tiny lives growing within her. I need time, she said finally, voice almost a whisper. Maverick nodded once. You will have it. But understand, Madeline, I am not going away. With that, he turned and left his stride calm, but the air around him charged with resolve. Madeline remained standing in the boutique, breathless. One truth was now certain. Their lives would never be the same again. The rain had started just as the sun dipped below the Lagos horizon. Banana Island glistened with moisture as soft thunder rolled in the distance. The city never truly slept, but in this quiet enclave of wealth and power, the world felt muted. Madeline Okon stood barefoot in the nursery, twin cribs assembled, ivory curtains flowing gently with the breeze. She rested a hand on her belly, her silk robe clinging softly to her rounded form. Diamond and Jason had been unusually calm all day, almost as if they sensed something was coming. And it was. The intercom buzzed. Michael, her driver, spoke with a note of hesitation. "Ma, Mr. Khalifa is here." Her heart paused just a second, then resumed with a quiet resolve. "Let him in." She made no effort to change out of her robe or prepare tea. Maverick would not be here for pleasantries. He was not a man who knocked twice. He would come in once and take what he needed to know. The knock at her door was soft but unmistakably firm. She opened it. There he stood, tall, composed, dressed in black slacks and a simple gray sweater that somehow made him look even more powerful. His eyes, dark and unreadable, rested on her face first, then slowly dropped to her belly. "You came," she said softly. "I said I would," he replied. She stepped aside. "Come in." The penthouse smelled faintly of jasmine and lemon. Books were stacked near the reading nook, and soft jazz played in the background, the home of a woman who loved peace and created it for herself. Maverick looked around briefly, but his gaze always returned to her. "I assume this isn't just a social call," she said, taking a seat on the edge of her cream sofa. "No," he replied. "I'm here because I need the truth." Madeline nodded slowly, as if she had been waiting for that sentence for months. "There's something I haven't told anyone," she began, folding her hands over her lap. "Not even my doctor, not my best friend, not the press, not you." He said nothing, just watched her waiting. "That night," she said, eyes fixed on the rain sliding down the windows. "The night we met, I was running. From the man in the photos," he said. "The ex." "Richard," she confirmed. "And Grace, my stepsister. I walked in on them in bed. Our bed. She drugged my champagne earlier that evening. I didn't realize until it was too late." Maverick's jaw tightened. "She drugged you?" She nodded. "But not enough to lose consciousness. I wasn't out of my mind. I could still feel, still think. When I got to the hotel, I wanted to disappear. I wanted to burn the memory of their betrayal out of my skin. And then I fainted." "I remember," he said quietly. "I saw you fall." She took a breath. "I woke up in your suite, on the bed. And for a while I was confused, vulnerable. You came in to check on me. I looked at you and I remember everything, every word, every moment." His eyes darkened. "You touched my arm, told me not to go." Madeline nodded slowly. "I asked you to stay, and I reached for you. I kissed you first, Maverick." He looked away for a moment, as if fighting off something stronger than memory. "I tried to stop it. You know I did." "I know," she whispered, "but I needed it. I needed to feel something that wasn't betrayal, and I wanted to feel it was someone who wasn't using me. You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything, and that made it pure in a way." Silence filled the space between them. "I didn't trap you," she said firmly. "I didn't come after you. I didn't name you. I made peace with the idea of raising them alone. Not because I didn't want you involved, but because I didn't know what kind of man you truly were." Maverick's gaze returned to her, unreadable but intense. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I was afraid you'd take them from me," she admitted, "that you'd decide they belonged in your world, away from mine. You have power, Maverick. I've seen what men like you do when they're challenged. I didn't want a court battle. I didn't want them to be a scandal." He walked toward the window, resting one hand against the frame. "I'm not like Richard," he said. She stood now, her hands still on her belly. I know. That's what scares me. You're not careless. You're deliberate. Which means if you want to be in their lives, you'll stay. And if you stay, everything changes. Maverick turned back to her, his face serious. Everything already has. She exhaled slowly. So what do you want, Maverick? His answer was soft but firm. I want to know them. I want them to know me. I don't want to be a photo in a file when they ask about their father. And me? She asked before she could stop herself. Where do I fit into that picture? He was quiet for a moment, then stepped toward her. Close enough to hear the rain against the glass. Close enough to feel the storm still brewing between them. I don't know yet, he admitted, but I know this. I've never wanted to stay anywhere. Until now. Her throat tightened. I'm not asking you to love me, he said. I'm just asking for the chance to show our children that I'm more than my name. Madeline nodded, her voice trembling as she whispered, then stay long enough to prove it. And for the first time in months, there was peace in the space between them. Not closure, but the beginning of something fragile and real. In the days that followed, true to his word, Maverick Khalifa did not disappear. When he came quietly, deliberately, without the trappings of his empire. No bodyguards, no publicists, no extravagant gestures. Just himself, the man, not the mogul walking up to the penthouse door of Madeline Okon's home on Banana Island. And each time she let him in. At first, their conversations were brief, careful. They spoke of the babies, their names, their nursery, her health. Maverick asked questions few would expect of him. What she ate for breakfast, how her sleep was going, what music soothed the twins when they kicked at night. He listened. Madeline found herself surprised by his quiet attentiveness, not the ruthless businessman of headlines, but a man trying slowly to understand what it meant to become a father. Still, she remained guarded. The walls around her heart, built stone by stone since that night of betrayal, were not so easily dismantled. And yet, something was shifting. One afternoon, as a soft Harmattan breeze swept through the penthouse, Maverick arrived carrying a large white gift box. For the twins, he said simply. Inside were 2 handcrafted bassinets from Paris, engraved discreetly. Diamond Khalifa. Jason Khalifa. Madeline traced her fingers over the smooth wood. Her breath caught. You've already given them your name, she said quietly. They're mine, he replied, and so are you in a way. The words hung in the air, not a demand, but a statement of truth. She met his gaze. I haven't agreed to that. He inclined his head. Not yet. That evening, after he left, Madeline found herself standing in the nursery, fingers resting on the bassinets. Could she truly do this? Let him into their lives? Into her life? She whispered softly to the twins. He wants to stay. But can I trust him? And for the first time, her heart didn't answer with certainty. Across Lagos, in the cool solitude of his mansion, Maverick poured himself a glass of whiskey, but left it untouched. His thoughts for once were not on business, nor power, nor wealth. They were on her, and the 2 small lives about to enter the world. He had not expected this pull, not just toward his children, but toward the woman who carried them with such grace and quiet strength. He had built a life on control, but in this, control was slipping. And for once, he didn't mind. The morning light poured through the wide hospital windows of Echo Elite Women's Hospital, painting the birthing suite in soft gold. The city beyond stirred quietly, but within these walls, time itself seemed to pause. Madeline Okon lay in the crisp hospital bed, her body weary but resolute. Sweat clung to her brow, her dark curls pulled back from her face. Her breathing came in short, controlled bursts as she fought through another contraction. By her side, Maverick Khalifa stood, sleeves rolled to his forearms, the ever-present coolness in his gaze replaced with something fierce, protective, his large hand wrapped securely around hers, grounding her as each wave of pain surged. She had not called him. In fact, she had hesitated to tell anyone when labor began in the early dawn hours. But somehow Maverick had known. A message from her driver. a quiet phone call to the hospital. And now he was here not as a bystander, not as a man simply claiming rights, but as someone whose presence calmed the storm within her. Hours blurred together. The medical team moved with practiced precision, their voices low, encouraging. Madeline bore the pain with unwavering dignity, refusing to let fear or exhaustion consume her. She had carried these children for months with her head high. She would meet them the same way. Maverick stayed through it all, offering no empty words, no theatrics, just solid, unwavering presence. Another contraction built, sharper than before. Madeline gripped his hand tighter, her breath quickening. "You're almost there," the doctor said warmly. "One more push, Madeline." With every ounce of strength she possessed, Madeline bore down the room, spinning, heart pounding, until, finally, a cry pierced the air. Then another. Tears welled in her eyes before she even saw them. "Congratulations, Madame Okon," the doctor announced gently. "You have a beautiful baby girl and a strong baby boy." They placed the tiny bundles in her arms, swaddled in the softest white cloth. Diamond, her daughter, dark eyes wide, tiny fingers flexing curiously. Jason, her son, cheeks flushed, a determined little frown already forming. Madeline's tears fell freely now, joy and exhaustion washing over her in equal measure. Maverick, silent until now, stepped closer, gaze locked on the twins. For the first time since she had known him, his guarded mask slipped entirely. "They're beautiful," he said, voice low and rough with emotion. "Perfect." Madeline looked up at him through tear-filled eyes. "They're yours." "No," he corrected softly, a rare tenderness breaking through. "They're ours." And somehow, in that simple correction, everything shifted. The following days passed in a haze of soft lullabies, quiet feedings, and whispered moments. Maverick returned to the hospital each morning without fail, staying until late into the night. No press releases, no public spectacle, only the man himself, stripped of boardroom armor, learning to cradle his daughter just so, to soothe his son with a deep, steady voice. Madeline watched, heart torn between instinctive caution and undeniable warmth. Was this the same man whose empire shaped Africa's financial world? The same man whose face graced magazine covers? Whose reputation was built on cold efficiency? Here he was different. Not softer, but real. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, painting the city in hues of gold, Maverick found her in the nursery wing, rocking Diamond slowly. He entered quietly, pausing at the door. "You should be resting," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "So should you. You've barely left." "I don't want to leave," he replied simply. Madeline hesitated, her gaze dropping to her daughter's tiny face. "Why are you really here, Maverick? Is it duty, guilt, or something more?" He moved closer, hands resting casually in his pockets. But his voice, when he spoke, carried no pretense. "At first I thought it was responsibility. Then it became something else." She met his gaze, steady now. "And what is it now?" "A need," he said. "To be here, to know them, to know you, the woman who carried my children with more strength than anyone I've ever met." Her breath caught, heart tightening. "You don't owe me that," she whispered. "I'm still trying to trust again, to love again. You can't force what I'm not ready to give." He stepped even closer now, the space between them charged. "I'm not here to force anything," he said. "I'm here to stay long enough for you to see that I will." Madeline searched his face, the eyes that once seemed cold, now burning with quiet resolve. "I've never done this," she admitted softly. "I've never had a family that felt safe." "You will," he said, "if you'll let me." In the weeks that followed, Maverick made good on his promise. He came to the penthouse daily, never as an intruder, but as a man building a bridge. He learned every routine when Jason preferred to be fed, which lullabies calmed Diamond best. He helped rock them to sleep, changed nappies without complaint, and stood by Madeline's side through every small moment. Bit by bit, the walls she had so carefully built began to shift. One evening, after the twins had finally settled, Madeline and Maverick sat on the balcony, the Lagos skyline shimmering in the distance. She sipped her tea in silence before glancing at him. "Why did you really come back?" she asked softly. "You could have walked away. No one would have blamed you." He turned, meeting her gaze. "Because for the first time in my life, I wanted something that wasn't power, or money, or control." "And what is that?" she asked. "A family," he said quietly, "with you." Her breath caught, not because of the words themselves, but because she knew in that moment he meant them. 6 months later, the Banana Island penthouse was no longer just a house. It was a home. Soft laughter echoed from the nursery as morning light poured in through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The once pristine space had been transformed, tiny clothes folded neatly in baskets, shelves lined with books, and plush toys scattered across a thick cream rug. In the center of it all, Madeline Okon sat cross-legged on the floor, her silk robe loose around her frame, curls tumbling around her shoulders. Diamond, chubby cheeks flushed with joy, gurgled in her lap while Jason, determined as ever, tugged at a brightly colored wooden block. Across the room, Maverick Khalifa, Lagos's most feared and admired billionaire, knelt in tailored slacks and an open white shirt, sleeves rolled. One large hand gently steadied Jason as the little boy tried to stand, wobbly but fearless. "Steady, son," Maverick murmured, a rare smile curving his lips. Jason grinned, bright dark eyes locking on his father's, and with one small push, toppled into Maverick's chest. A low chuckle rumbled from the man, once known for his ruthless efficiency. From her spot, Madeline watched quietly, heart full in a way she had never thought possible. 6 months ago, she had stood at a crossroads, uncertain if she could trust, if she could open her life to this man. Now, watching him cradle their children, the decision seemed inevitable. He had stayed. Not with grand gestures or hollow promises, but with quiet constancy. He had been there for every sleepless night, every doctor's visit, every new milestone. And somehow along the way, they had become more than co-parents. They had become partners, family. Later that morning, after the twins had gone down for their nap, Maverick and Madeline sat on the sun-drenched balcony, mugs of coffee in hand. Below them, the city shimmered vast and relentless. But up here, in this pocket of peace, everything felt different. Maverick studied her over the rim of his mug. "You're quieter today." She smiled softly. "Just thinking." "About?" She hesitated, then met his gaze. "About how life never turns out the way we plan. I never thought, after everything, that I'd have this." He reached across the small table, fingers brushing hers. "Neither did I." A pause. "And us?" he asked softly. "What do you see?" Madeline's heart thudded. She had asked herself that question 1,000 times over these past months, and now the answer came with surprising clarity. "I see a beginning," she whispered. "Not perfect, but real." Maverick's eyes darkened, voice low and sure. "That's all I've ever wanted." Later that evening, as twilight wrapped the city in velvet hues, Maverick stood in the nursery doorway, watching Madeline rock Diamond gently. He crossed the room, sliding an arm around her waist. "You gave me more than children," he murmured against her hair. "You gave me a life I never thought I deserved." Madeline turned to him, eyes shimmering. "And you gave me trust again. You stayed long enough." He smiled, then rare, genuine. "Forever, Madeline, if you'll have me." She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. Forever sounds just right. And in that quiet, golden moment, with their twins sleeping peacefully nearby, a new chapter began, not the life either of them had once imagined, but perhaps the one they were always meant to find. Dear viewers, what lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.